Where to hide. Look, I know that school choice is a touchy issue here in Idaho, but if it's touchy enough that you're willing to bend or even break rules or perhaps even laws in order to see your side prevail, you might want to rethink that approach. I've got details coming up in just a few moments.
A press club or bias all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Know Where to Hide. I know that the issue of school choice has been very strongly fought. I'll just put it that way, for the last few legislative sessions. And this year, I don't even think it made it to where a vote could be taken. It just sat there and died in Jim Guthrie's drawer of bills that will not be heard. But you have to wonder why it is that this is such a hot point issue that and such a hot button issue for those who work within the public education establishment. I mean, after all, parents who want their education dollars to follow their children so that they have better choices. I would think that is a very responsible thing to do as a parent. And this is assuming that we can agree that not all kids learn the exact same way. And I'm sorry, public schools do the best they can to accommodate kids, but that one size fits all approach isn't the best approach for everybody. But the opposition that always seems to crop up from teachers' unions, among others, is that money is ours and anything that takes that money away is going to somehow harm education. And it seems like it's more about supporting the system than actually supporting the children. In fact, sometimes you hear this disingenuous claim that, well, you have plenty of choice within the system. And it's like, not really. If you want your children to be educated by the government, that's one option. And many people choose that because it's more convenient for them or it meets their needs. But for other people, it's just not a good example of school choice, no matter how often those administrators and lobbyists from the public school establishment tell us that, oh, you have all the choice you need. Obviously not, or you wouldn't see people still pushing for that option of educating their children elsewhere. So let's talk about, apparently this is one of the issues that is coming up, and now we actually have a school superintendent in eastern Idaho that apparently has crossed a line. I have to give thanks to John Hyde with Stop Idaho Rhinos. Hello, Tyler Telford, superintendent of Westside School District. Can you explain why you're sending political materials and influencing elections from your official account? And he actually lists out the violation of Idaho Statute 67-5311 and 67-5303 with the appropriate sections that are being violated. Now, we'll go into some detail as to what this is, but let's take a look at those sections of Idaho law so that we can understand this. I know this is small print, but this is section 5311, 67-5311, which talks about limitation of political activity. So no employee of a state department covered by this act shall use his official authority or influence for the purpose of interfering with an election or a nomination for office or affecting the result thereof. Also, directly or indirectly coercing, attempting to coerce, command, or direct any such other officer or employee to pay, lend, or contribute any part of his salary or compensation or anything else of value to any party, committee, organization, agency, or person for political purposes, or be a candidate and hold elective office in any partisan election. Pretty straightforward there. They're just saying, look, if you're in an official state capacity, you can't use that official office to try to influence somebody else in an election or to try to get the desired political outcome that you want. If you want to do that, you got to do it as a private citizen. Now, let's take a quick look. This is the people who are included under that second section of Idaho Code. This includes any division administrator. That would include a superintendent of public schools. Now, let's take a look at Mr. Telford's email. And this is somewhat self-explanatory. This is section 5303 that talks about no one who is in an administrative position or an administrator can do this. Application: all departments of the state of Idaho and all employees in such departments, except those employees specifically defined as non-classified, shall be classified employees who are subject to this chapter and to the system of personnel administration if prescribed. So moving on to the email. It's pretty clear Mr. Telford fits this. This is from Westside School District. This is the official account of the superintendent. You can see his email address there. Misleading Cheatham postcard. Now, this is a political candidate's postcard that apparently went out. There's a lot of this stuff circulating right now. So here is what the superintendent had to say. You may have recently received a postcard in the mail that has sparked some concern regarding our representative, Richard Cheatham. This postcard suggests that Mr. Cheatham failed Idaho families and urges recipients to voice their complaints. However, Superintendent Telford says, I want to clarify that this flyer is both misleading and inaccurate. In truth, Representative Cheatham, alongside a majority of Idaho's representatives and senators, made a commendable decision in voting down the voucher bill. I like that he puts it in air quotes because it wasn't really a voucher bill at all, often dubbed the Parent Choice Bill by its proponent. Contrary to its misleading name, this bill aimed to divert funding away from public education towards costly private schools. If you notice, the postcard came from an out-of-state company based in Texas. Now, he has an honest disagreement with school choice. That much we can agree on. But also, in his official capacity, now we have Superintendent Telford saying it's important to recognize that parents in Idaho already possess the freedom to choose the educational path best suited for their children. What he's not saying is, as long as it's within that government-run system. The proposed bill threatened to undermine our public education system by siphoning funds away from it, actually allowing parents to use those funds to their child's advantage. In other words, is this about the system or is it about the children? Clearly, in this superintendent's view, it's about the system. Instead of criticism, he says Representative Cheatham deserves our gratitude for protecting the integrity and accessibility of public education in our state. I encourage you, this is the important sentence, if the opportunity arises to express your support, how might they do that? Perhaps in a voting booth? And appreciation for his stance on this critical issue. There you have it. That's electioneering. That's someone in an official capacity using his position to try to influence people as to how they vote. And just so you know, this is actually from the superintendent. I'll show you. There it is. There's his phone number. There's his email. There's the signature, Mr. Tyler Telford. So what's to be done about this? Well, there are people who've actually reached out to Raul Labrador. Hey, we got a rogue superintendent who's flouting, Idaho's electioneering law. And maybe that is something that needs to be looked at. But more importantly, as a voter, you need to be very careful and be wary of just how ingrained the system is in protecting itself and protecting its interests. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And I would actually argue that Mr. Telford's email contains a lot of misinformation, even as he claims that the postcard that went out has misinformation. He uses the right buzzwords. He, again, asserts, well, you have all the choice you need within our system. But maybe that monopoly has run its course. You don't hear a lot of talk about accountability. Are Idaho students performing at the level that they are supposed to perform at? Or are we seeing stagnation in terms of their reading scores, their math scores? An awful lot of money has been put into public education. And it works for some people. There are a lot of good people who work within the system. But let's not pretend that it works for everybody, or for that matter, that it's delivering on its promise. Competition is actually a good thing because if someone or something is underperforming, you have other choices. It makes everybody sharpen up their game and actually do a better job. Why wouldn't that work for public education? I know the statists don't think it could happen. Why? If it weren't for public schools, none of us would know how to walk. Yeah. People who want to see educational choice aren't so interested in destroying the government-run school system as simply making sure that they are doing the best possible education for their child according to that child's needs. But it seems like the members of that public education system are much more insistent on we've got to protect the system first and foremost, and that is the problem with their thinking. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
A press club or bias all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing politics.